So GPT-5 is finally here, and I wanted to let everybody kind of like settle down before I made this video because there's been a lot of noise around this model, which I kind of expected to happen because I was somewhat underwhelmed with the live stream, but whenever you actually get to using the model, it's pretty good. But again, it wasn't exactly what we were promised. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be exactly either, if I'm being honest with you. I was expecting a model that was much bigger, right? This is a very small model. This is smaller than O3. It costs literally half as much as Claude 3.5 Sonnet does. And that model came out over a year ago. Yet, it's beating the benchmarks. It is saturating all of the benchmarks. It's actually doing things that I didn't expect this model to be able to do. I'm actually applying it within my code base. I'm applying it within real world problems, within the actual products that I am building. And it is helping me find things that I actually wouldn't find myself and I couldn't have any other model find. I've tried O3, I've tried 4.1 Opus, I've tried 2.5 Pro. None of them can do it. But this model can, which I think brings us to point number one as to why I think this model is actually better than what a lot of people are saying. And it comes down to these two graphs. And honestly, where we are at right now in the AI revolution, these are the most important two graphs by far out of any of the graphs we have ever had. Okay? So the hallucination rates, for one, are in the toilet. This model is the first step of solving hallucinations. And yes, it still gets little stupid things wrong, like how many R's are in this arbitrarily long word with an arbitrary number of R's. Sure, cool. I don't care about those things. I want to see it being applied to actual problem spaces. That's not really a problem, right? So I'm not really too I don't care about the tokenization issues because that's all that is. Like, that arbitrarily long word with an arbitrary number of R's just has like multiple tokens within one word, and it's not like tokenizing correctly or whatever, which is a problem that I expect to be fixed one day. It's just not that important right now. It's just kind of like a cute little trick more than anything. So I really don't care about those, but on the whole, hallucination rates have dropped drastically. Usually, if I'm trying to get one of these models to think from first principles and actually look at the irreducible components of a system, they just completely arbitrarily say something within the system that isn't irreducible at all. It's actually very unimpressive. This is the first model that can actually attach variables to the irreducible components of a system and work up from there. And I've never seen that with a model before. I've tried it with O3, I've tried it with all of the different models, as I said previously. This is the first model that is actually intelligent enough to do that. Yet, it is half the size, or cost half as much as 3.5 Sonnet. That was the first one. The hallucination rates are being solved. They're not quite all the way there yet. There's probably some small things here and there, but the hallucination rates are what affect this graph right here, which is point number 2. The context performance over time. The biggest constraint to having agents that are economically viable was the hallucination rates, which allows us to have longer performant tasks within the context window. And this is going to grow longer and longer and longer over time. You can see GPT-5 stays pretty consistent pretty much at the entire top there, while O3 dips down almost immediately, going almost straight down as you get halfway through. This is everything whenever it comes to economically viable tasks. This is literally the thing. This is the only thing that we are missing, and it is actually seeing real progress. So all of the other benchmarks that were measured whenever GPT-5 was launched, and we had all these like pseudo benchmarks where the benchmark was like not really representing what was actually there, this is the one that matters. Those ones are saturated. A lot of them are saturated, not all of them are, but a lot of those are also bullshit. This is the one that I'm actually impressed by, and this is the one that's actually giving us real progress, which, if you look at the International Math Olympiad models, those are also an indicator that the hallucination rates are being solved and the long context performance is being solved, because if you look at the International Math Olympiad problems, they are mathematical proofs that take pages and pages and pages of work to get to your answer. The output is the same, but the pages are they can vary along the way. There's not one particular path to get to that one deterministic answer, meaning these models are quite literally innovating along the path and not hallucinating along the path in order to get to this answer. If you have one of those statistical tokens messing up, just having a wrong probability coming out in the path to that answer, the answer is completely wrong. This is the first sign of hallucinations not being there. This is the first sign of real innovation with these models, because you are now innovating a path to the problem that you're trying to solve. You have the problem, the question, whatever the question or problem is. That is the vector pointing this agent to go to the path towards where the solution is, and it builds this scaffolding, innovating along the arc to solving the problem. One could define intelligence as achieving the same goal through different means. So let's say I have a goal and you're going to the goal, and then I put a barrier in front of that path. You find a different path to the same goal. That is a sign of intelligence. Or let's say you find the path to the goal, and then you find a quicker path to the goal. Very similar thing. And if you can do it faster and faster, that's more and more intelligent. So now let's look at this example of Pokemon. We have the O3 model taking literally 3 times longer to beat Pokemon than GPT-5. If that isn't a sign of 3 times more intelligence, I don't know what it is, because these models are not trained on Pokemon. They're just put in this environment and they have to figure it out on themselves. And they do have information of Pokemon and their distribution in the neural net, and so do humans. Like, humans opt into Pokemon, they start playing the game already knowing a little bit about Pokemon. They know what Pikachu is, they know like what they need to do, they know what a Pokemon ball is, and they just play the game, right? Not too different from these models. Obviously, they're not making synaptic connections as they're moving throughout space, but we'll get there. And now for the last point, which is the meter benchmark. If you're not familiar with the meter benchmark, it's basically task duration that humans would usually do. Like if a human does it in 2 hours, the model does it probably in like 15 minutes, but it can handle that 2-hour long task as an AI model, which is pretty impressive. Now, this is only a 50% chance of succeeding, so maybe you have to 2-shot the problem that you're trying to solve that takes 2 hours for the human, and that'll take you 30 minutes. So it's pretty impressive. You're saving a lot of time, let's put it that way. Anyways, what we're seeing is progress continuing to accelerate along this arc, even though the models are smaller and they cost half the price. Again, I'm not trying to overhype this model. I'm not trying to be a hype guy at all. It just kind of blows my mind whenever you really get down to it. It's pretty impressive. And the reason this model feels, whenever you're like communicating with it, whenever you're having a conversation with GPT-5, it almost feels like not intelligent, because it's a very small, lightweight model. It feels like you're talking to like a 70 billion parameter model. And I'm not sure how many parameters are actually in there, but it does feel like there's not that many parameters in there, which makes it so much more impressive that we can squeeze that much efficiency, that these many gains out of a model that is very small. Because if you talk to like GPT 4.5 or 4.0, the models are very big, and you have very interesting personalities within these models, because you can almost look at the volume of data around a particular topic as like gravity for that particular topic. Let's say I have a million ways of saying the word dog. Like, I say the word dog in a gazillion different sentences in a gazillion different ways. There's a lot of ambiguity around that word dog, which allows these models to articulate in very nuanced, complex ways that the small parameter models can't. But the fact that we have small parameter models that are making this much progress on agentic time horizons, doing actual intelligent things, makes me so much more bullish that you just can't even put it into words. Like, let's scale up the model. Let's do the same thing that we did with the small model, and let's see what happens. Let me just say it that way. It's going to be insane. Now, speaking of that, what we need to realize is GPT-5 is still an old model. I have a tweet here from Gavin Baker, let me find it real quick. I think I just lost it. Gavin Baker, if you're not familiar, he is a tech CEO, venture capitalist. He's pretty big in the AI space, or maybe not pretty big in the AI space, but he knows a lot about AI. He said, it's important to remember, Grok 4, GPT-5, 4.1 Opus were all trained on the old school Hopper GPUs. The Blackwell models aren't even here yet. I don't even think they're being, they're not even starting training yet. Maybe they are, but they're not here yet. He says he expects the first models to be trained on Blackwell in the next 6 months. And then Sam Altman also made a tweet. He said, we are doubling our GPU capacity over the next 5 months. Doubling the GPU capacity. Doubling the GPU capacity over the next 5 months. So they have a data center that is twice the size of the ones they have now that is about to come online in 5 months, which is pretty cool. And that means the big models are coming, and the big models are going to make more progress than this, because that's what they do. They have the ambiguity of the data. They have that just enough noise in there, just enough noise to actually have interesting outputs. But they are very computationally expensive. And I think that's what we need to remember, is these models are still small. The models are still very lightweight. Sam also said they actually have a bigger model that they were going to deploy, but they decided not to because they don't have enough compute capacity. But I think that model is coming, and we'll probably see it in the next 5 to 12 months, and it's going to make GPT-5 look kind of funny. But we'll see. All I know is the science is progressing on these things, and that's really all that matters. If we look at the meter benchmark again, if we look at where we are right now from 2020 to 2026, we're starting to see some liftoff, and we see acceleration with GPT-5 all the way up here. Very small model, but it's very capable. Now let's zoom out on this. Let's zoom out to 2036. Let's pretend that this rate of improvement continues to happen. And it seems like it's going to. At first, I thought we were going to hit an S-curve. I'll be completely honest with you. But the International Math Olympiad models are blowing my mind. So if we do play this out, and again, I don't know if it's going to do this, it could easily start to S off by 2030, which in some ways I think it might. Maybe it'll S off by 2035. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't at all. We have no idea. But if we play it out, the 2036, this is what it looks like. Let me remind you, this graph, the short one goes to 2026. This one goes to 2036. If we look at 2026 on the zoomed out graph, you don't see any liftoff. You don't see liftoff at all until 2032. You don't see anything until 2032. Yet, whenever you zoom in, this is what it looks like at 2026. This is the same data, literally the same data. All I did is I took the data from meter and I stretched it out over a longer period of time. This is the power of exponentials. We don't even see the liftoff. It's not even visible on this graph. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be Mr. Hype Man. I'm just trying to put things into perspective for everybody. But anyways, here's the actual table if you want to see what that looks like from 2025 to 2035. At 2035, we get to 41 years per task, meaning these agents are now living entire lifetimes in one prompt. Or maybe by that point, it's a third of a lifetime. Maybe even less. Maybe it's a sixth of a lifetime. Who knows? But I don't know, man. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I do know there are real constraints, obviously, but I do think those constraints are being solved. I don't think we have science constraints anymore around these models. The International Math Olympiad models are already showing me that there's not a lot of breakthroughs we need to make in order for this to work. We're making progress on the hard to verify tasks. We're making progress along the context length. We just saw that with the chart that I put up earlier. I'll put it up again. The context length and the performance over time on that context length and the reliability with the hallucination rates is being solved, which, again, the International Math Olympiad models are an indicator of that. The problems are being solved. I don't know what else to say. And the interesting thing, I was watching, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, I was watching an interview between Peter Diamandis and Eric Schmidt, and Eric Schmidt was talking to Noam Brown of OpenAI, and Eric Schmidt said, it sounds like the word of the year is scaffolding. Because if you're not aware, scaffolding is what these models run on. They can't be agentic. They can't apply like economic value without the scaffolding that they're running on. Like a cursor, any type of CLI model like Claude Code, that's the scaffolding that the model works on. And then Noam Brown said, well, internally the models are starting to build their own scaffolding for the problem space that you prompt them to solve. And that's kind of mind-blowing, which means they have a form of like the ability to innovate a little bit within a problem space while you're prompting them to go solve that problem. Let's say I want them to solve a problem within my business over here. I can say, hey, go over there and solve the problem. They say, I don't have the scaffolding. Let me build the scaffolding for myself so that I can solve the problem within that space. Which is why it's very important to have the types of reasoning models that can solve the things like the International Math Olympiad. Because that's the same exact type of problem. It's the same exact type of thing. It's just like a little bit broader. It's not that much broader, just a little bit broader. The reasoning paradigm is directionally the same. Oh my god, dude. Anyways, I'm not trying to overhype. Again, I'm pretty good at doing that because I get excited when making these videos. I'm just trying to share like what I see happening. And I'm not sure other people are seeing what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me know. Maybe have some of that GPT psychosis or whatever the fuck it's called. Yeah, let me know what you guys see. That being said, subscribe to my other YouTube channel. It's all about building with the tools. It's called Building a One-Person AI Business Model. I'm extremely excited for that channel. I think it's going to grow pretty quickly. I'm talking about things that a lot of people don't really talk about whenever it comes to AI in business. A lot of what I talk about is more so on the marketing side, while a lot of people are like, here's how you use Claude Code to do these 3 things. And I'm like, that's not very valuable. Like, Claude Code's not hard to figure out. What is hard to figure out is what products to build with Claude Code. So that's more so what I talk about is like the bigger picture of like, what products should you build? How should you build them? How do you go to market? How do you actually solve these types of problems so that you can grow? Not just, let me build something arbitrary. It's like, what should I even build so that I can build it? That being said, I'm going to leave the video here. Subscribe there. Peace.